Well, good morning and thank you very much for joining us. I am Yori Folari. The news hit yesterday, worldwide I would imagine, that indeed a decision has been made in favor of Nigeria in the long drawn-out case of P&ID Limited, Process and Industrial Development Limited. It's an engineering and project management company founded by two Irishmen, Michael Quinn and Brendan Cahill. People have described them as shady Irishmen. But the important thing is that the one thing that everybody can take out of this, you don't need to be a legal expert, is that the decision against Nigeria up till now, and they claim, was really arranged and delivered by fraud. Well, that's enough, because I have an expert who will really take us through it. And I'm talking about Wahab Shitu, SAN, law lecturer at the University of Lagos. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Uncle Yori. It's always a pleasure.
Our delight to have you. After a long, this has been quite long, and it has taken so very much in terms of resources. It spanned numerous administrations. I think it goes back to the Jonathan era. Tell me your feeling about this, especially against the backdrop of the judge saying that it was fraudulent, and that I think you will tell me about that, that the company that I just sort of described, Process and Industrial Development Limited, was set up exclusively for fraudulent purposes.
Thank you so much, Uncle Yori. I think a background will be necessary.
Okay.
I think it's common knowledge that Nigeria is faced with electricity power challenges. And we have sufficient quantities of gas that are being flared, causing enormous pollution problems. It is against this background that say this gas can be processed to generate electricity for the benefit of Nigerians and those who make use of power for operations. So, on the face of it, when we say it is an altruistic intention that led to the signing of the contract in 2010, but the people who signed the contract with Nigeria and those who represented Nigeria orchestrated fraud. The company itself was, in the words of the court,
yes,
the British court, was prepared for bribery. P&ID, Process and Industrial
Development
Limited, was a company incorporated in the British Virgin Islands by two Irishmen, Michael Quinn,
yes,
and then Cahill.
yes,
with the object for what the judgment has now said, to swindle Nigeria.
Yes.
It was a scam.
And this would have been, it couldn't have been done without Nigerians being involved.
Yes. Some Nigerians were involved. Some foreign collaborators, these two British people. And whatever we are saying now, we are not just saying it to defame anybody.
No, the British.
We are saying
the
it.
Irish.
The Irish.
Very important
yes,
about.
yes.
So don't call me British, I'm Irish.
Irish. It's not to defame anybody. Even if you go through the judgment, the judge made copious references to fraud, to bribery, to corruption, and to the fact that the entire process of the signing of the contract and the arbitral award was tainted with, was contrary to public policy. You imagine what would have happened to Nigeria if the judgment had gone the other way around.
That would come up with 11 billion.
Yes.
But by the way, it was
6.6
billion. But it was
at 7% interest rate. So today it's about, we are talking about 11-point-something billion.
And some people wanted to collect on that.
Yes. So you can imagine our country is facing enormous liquidity problems as we stand. To now say a country like Nigeria should cough out such an amount of money right now, it will certainly render, beyond even the entire budget of the federal government, it will render the federal government's operation prostrate. And so, again, other consequences. Already by the award, the assets of the country and all the federal agencies locally and abroad are endangered. Again, our foreign reserves stand the risk of being depleted, grossly depleted. Again, our fiscal and monetary policies will be distorted. So you can see that it has a lot of wide-ranging implications. So I think Nigerians will be singing hallelujah. Indeed now. And thanks to the fact that this is happening in the regime of the man with the Midas church. President Ahmed Bola Tinubu. Because we all know that he means well for Nigeria. Indeed. And he can only function if he has resources.
Indeed. But indeed, as you have said, but this, if we were to look back a bit to the Buhari administration, they also took a large part in the happy outcome that we're now talking about.
Yeah, of course. Because this was a long-drawn
out litigation.
The signing of the agreement took place on 11th January 2010. The arbitral award, there was a dispute. That dispute was submitted for arbitration. And the arbitral award came in 2017. The question you to ask is that why did it take us so long to challenge the arbitral award? It was a conscious attempt was made by the Buhari administration. Nearly major agencies collaborated for this outcome. We can reference the input of the Federal Ministry of Justice. We can reference the input of the Attorney General of the Federation. The pioneering role of EFCC under Ibrahim Magu. And also Ministry of Petroleum Resources. And then Federal Ministry, NNPC, Nigerian Limited, all of these agencies, including intelligence, NFIU, all of them collaborated. That to you should dramatize to you the beauty of synergy, rather than agencies getting themselves involved in needless rivalry. If they collaborate and they harmonize resources together by way of synergy, you can see what that can translate into. And that's what has delivered this outcome.
Vice Shitu, all of these agencies of government that you've enumerated now that came together to see the final resolution of this case, I look at the whole case as a knot. Now, how did we get tied in this knot in the first place that now requires all of this intricacy to sort of undo and end up in a clear judgment of fraud?
Thank you. Institutional failure. Institutional leakages. And deliberate collaboration to swindle the country. The judgment also alluded to it. The element of greed. The extent people can go because of money.
Yes.
Not caring what consequences will result to the Nigerian people, to Nigeria as a country, and what harm it can cause to our foreign reserves, to our developmental aspirations, and to our image as a country.
Whereas one might perhaps, just perhaps, understand that in relation to two dubious Irishmen. The Nigerian component, what does that say?
No, that says that lack of patriotism. That's how you can look at it. Greed. People wanting to profit at the expense of public good, without regard to public good. How do you sign such a contract of that magnitude without taking the office of the Attorney General into consideration? How do you sign that as an agency without looking at all the checklists?
Yeah.
We have enough laws here. We have sufficient legislative framework that will prevent this kind of infiltration of our system.
But there was collusion.
Because obvious attempt to subvert the system.
I heard
419 scam.
Yes. Because I've heard an analyst on another station liken it to a house of wealth that is Nigeria's, and that you have a strong man that you've put there, and this very strong man is the very same person who is colluding with outsiders to invade and plunder that which he was put there. So that goes back to all that you said, that we have all the devices if people would only do the right thing and be patriotic and be honest. But this was clearly not done and intentionally not done for gain. For gain.
Yes. Look at the nature of the contract. It was meant to be a gas supply and processing contract. Gas supply. You have the gas to supply as a country. Now, these gas were to be processed. We supply the wet gas, which is to be, distilled into lean gas, and then for purposes of generating electricity supply, and the excess to, to be sold and then exported. That was the agreement. So, which means they need, P&ID needs to put in place processing facilities on ground. They purportedly said they secured a land in Cross River. No approval was given for any land. So it was a horse. They didn't take any step to further the terms of the contract. No step at all was taken to establish all these processing, facilities that will kickstart the supply of gas. So you can see that from the beginning, the intent was to defraud the country.
And they now turn around and sue
and the agreement was already signed. So they look for clauses of arbitration in the agreement. Because the agreement was to last for 20 years. So, and they say, okay, because they wanted to profit.
So that's why you say P&ID was a company set
up
exclusively...
No engine of fraud.
For fraud.
Engine of fraud.
It was exclusively a vehicle for
fraud. But I'm happy that the UK system is working effectively and efficiently. You see, the problem we have in our country is not lack of resource capacity. It's not because our lawyers are any less brilliant, our judges, some of the best in the world we have in this country. But the real problem with our country is that our system is not working effectively and efficiently the way it should run. In fact, our system is overwhelmed. Our judges overwhelmed.
And this often works in favor of fraudsters.
Yeah, fraudsters.
Knowing that the system is overwhelmed.
Overwhelmed.
When did which Nigerian administration now canceled the whole project, giving rise to this claim by P&ID?
I think the whole process started during the Buhari regime.
Okay.
Or
was it Jonathan that canceled?
Yes. And then all the successive administrations from 2017 started fighting.
The Minister of Information, the Attorney General, EFCC, all of these people actually had to go to the UK at a certain stage to push
this. In fact, a special ad hoc committee, interagency committee, was set up. And experts were drawn from all of these agencies and to see it as an emergency problem that needed to be addressed. Already we have liquidity challenges. If our assets stood the risk of being attached locally and internationally, our foreign reserves stood the risk of being grossly depleted. You understand what I'm saying? And then our monetary and fiscal policies stand the risk of being distorted. Those were grave dangers. There's no country faced with such challenges that can survive.
And as you say, Nigeria is not lacking in erudite lawyers, people who are judges and people who know what they're doing. But it can sometimes get quite complex. And I think we refer to the lack of capacity sometimes. Because when you look at the decision that has been handed down in the UK now, it was meticulous.
Yes. No, imagine, you can see, if you look at the judgment, 140 pages. That was a product of careful and meticulous evaluation of evidence and reasoning, jurisprudence, on display. Now, imagine if such a judge were to be overwhelmed with thousands of cases. I doubt if we were able to give the kind of attention that they gave to the case. If you read the case from the beginning the judgment from the beginning to the end, what you will see is details, careful attention to details. There was a background. All the witnesses, the role of specific individuals were analyzed. All the process of the trial process, which lasted for 6 weeks. Rigorous trial process. And we have good lawyers.
And it was interesting. It was the judgment was given in both open court and
Open
by
court,
email. And by email. So that it was all more or less instant.
And then also, it has gone to the archives.
Straight.
Straight.
And it's now become what you lawyers refer to as a precedent.
Precedent.
When you start to
so what we need to do as a country.
A caller has come in. Let me just take the caller. Good morning, Mr. George. Thank you for calling in.
Good morning, Uncle Yori.
Good morning.
Good morning to the senior advocate.
Yes.
Good morning,
Uncle Yori, kudos must first be given to President Buhari, who insisted that the corruption in that deal must be challenged. This is a country whose prime minister once told the world that Nigerians are fantastically corrupt.
Yes.
We can now see that corruption is not limited to Nigerians. What I would like to point out here, Uncle Yori, is this. Nigerians want to know the Nigerian component of it. Who are the Nigerians involved? And the president must punish them. That's the only way to send a signal to other ones that if they try this type of a thing again, this is what will happen. We don't punish people when they offend the system. That is why corruption is thriving. Look at the Halliburton case. Even those key figures involved in Nigeria are parading themselves. They even want to become president of the country at all costs. Whereas their counterparts that were involved in the deal are in jail in foreign countries. It's because there is no punishment when people err against the system. I want President Tinubu to use this one to assert himself and show that he is different. Imagine, like the senior advocate said, imagine if this judgment was against Nigeria. How are we going to cough out $11 billion? We are looking for $10 billion to bail out the system. You see the rate of the naira to dollar. We have not even seen $1 billion to do something. Then how are we going to be paying $11 billion? That would have amounted to a debt of the economy.
Indeed.
So this is serious enough for the president to say, okay, you and you and you and you that are involved in this, you must go for it. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you very much for calling in. Now, Mr. George there touched on another area that everybody is talking about. Who are the shadowy figures that are involved in Nigeria? Much is still very much shrouded under wraps.
Thank you.
Are you optimistic that we can get to these people?
I think they made a very valid point.
Yes, they need to be
about
named
the
and shamed.
consequences for infractions. We cannot just say, begin to proceed. Business as usual. No. Consequences. For instance, we may have been proceeding in the wrong direction before. Mm-hmm. For instance, I salute the fact that Mr. Shashore,
okay, one of the lawyers, an SAN,
has been exonerated.
Yes, from
the judgment. That you can see.
That's part of the complaint. Sorry, sir, for interrupting you there, because I was going to come to that, but you've brought it up. This is part of the intricacies of the place, where the judge actually said that Shashore's actions were consistent are inconsistent with the charge of Nigeria's theory that he was corrupt. He said from his advice, Nigerians, from his advice to Nigeria and to all of that, he assisted Nigeria to succeed in its applications. The participation in various settlement discussions helped reduce the figure. But miraculously, Shashore was accused by Nigeria of corruption. And the judge actually pronounced that he does not think
Well,
that-
I'm
that
very happy
He does
for-
not think that Malami, the Attorney General at the time, actually believed that Shashore was corrupt. Now, talk about complications and contortions.
Yes, well, you see, that's specific findings of facts by the judge. And that specific finding is like Shashore now has been washed clean,
Yes,
like Pontius Pilate.
yes.
Incidentally, he was my court-to-bar mate, so I'm very happy for him.
So, but Nigeria accused him of corruption. And the judge had to knock it down. That where is the evidence?
Well, from that,
There's nothing here.
From that,
Shashore was corrupt.
that judgment, thou can knock off any. So, which means we should search deeper.
Yes.
We should look beyond Shashore.
It might have been a red herring.
Shashore has been proven to be innocent.
Olasupo Shashore.
Olasupo, SAN, one of the brilliant minds we have.
He said, the judge said that the Attorney General Malami has not explained to this court how these events are consistent with the belief on his and Nigeria's part that Mr. Shashore SAN had been corrupt in his professional work for Nigeria in the arbitration against P&ID.
That's a clean bill of health. That's specific findings.
But it also indicates the complexity of the case.
Yes,
if you're going to throw decent people under the bus.
Yes, yes. No, well, I think the other name for Shashore in Yoruba parlance now should be Wemimo. Oluwa Wemimo.
Yeah,
He has been
quite frankly.
vindicated. But there are elements, certainly, at various levels who compromised and brought us to this sad experience. Because we're in a desperate situation. Everybody, a lot of anxiety about what was likely to be the outcome. Until this judgment was pronounced, nobody knew what would be the outcome. But I think we must salute the diligence of our attorneys in the UK who prosecuted the case. And some of the evidence made available by our anti-graft agencies.
Okay.
We should also
In fact,
salute...
without EFCC.
EFCC did a lot under Magu. I don't want to know, And Magu worked with a lot of other people. So there was an interagency, committee put in place, including the Office of the Attorney General. They work closely. So one lesson from this is that the beauty of synergy. If we work closely, you can imagine the kind of results that can be achieved. If our agencies are not engrossed in needless rivalry, if they collaborate, all the problems we have in the country will be reduced to the barest minimum, whether terrorism, whether corruption.
Are you optimistic that what people are asking, Mr. George,
No, what he's saying.
That we need to know these people.
Yeah, we need to. And then we now have...
Can it be done?
Yes, it can be done. We have a template, the judgment. We can just take the judgment. The Attorney General, luckily for us, we have a seasoned Attorney General. He's quite experienced. And who's painstaking. He's to study the judgment painstakingly. Because the judgment has provided a lot of direction, how to go. And investigate individual roles and ensure that people are brought to book within our laws.
Indeed.
Yes,
indeed.
no.
Because it's...
You can't have a...
I mean, look
have a regime of...
Look at the Shashore that we mentioned.
Yes.
That would have been a tragedy
No.
if things had gone the other way
Yes,
around.
he went through a lot of trauma.
Okay, indeed.
He went through a lot of trauma.
And
he wears his shoes, no where it pinches.
it does. It does.
He went through a lot of trauma. I didn't envy him. I said, a former Attorney General of Lagos State,
Indeed.
a senior advocate of Nigeria, being brought to trial.
It was about to be besmirched
Yes.
until this
Because-
cleansing.
cleansing.
Because
congratulate him.
exactly, he said, the judge said Malami SAN has not explained to this court how these events, all the previous events, how all of this are consistent with the belief on his and Nigeria's part that Mr. Shashore SAN had been corrupt in the professional work for Nigeria in the arbitration against, P&ID. Aki in the, I beg your pardon, sir. Okay. Aki in the UK, good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, Uncle Yori.
Good morning.
And good morning to the guests in the studio.
Yes.
Good morning.
Hello?
Yes, we're waiting for you.
Oh, okay. Yes, just a brief contribution towards the topic of today. I congratulate the Nigerian government for, winning the case and, at least, getting things done in the proper manner. What I find a little bit appalling here is that, in spite of the fact that P&ID were trying to, defraud the country, we should really go for the civil service and those people who are involved in all this acrimony that has caused deep embarrassment to the Nigerian government. Seriously, you look. If we do not go for if we don't go for these people, things like this will occur again. And and we also need to look at all other contracts that have been listed out on behalf of the Nigerian government, and to look at where and how those contracts were released. For me, I'm so glad because Olasho Koshoshole is someone that I really like because of his books that I read. But then trying to undermine the integrity of such a very brilliant mind goes to show you how corrupt even the AGM's office can be sometimes. And I mean to say that because Malami has shown us that sometimes he can be out of context when he is doing things. It's all over. We all know that. But once again, let me just use this opportunity to congratulate the government. At least by now, we have a safe what they call it, a safe net right now. If not, we would have been looking for ways to pay $11 billion. Thank you, Uncle Chori, and do have a wonderful day.
Same to you, and thank you for calling in. The big picture, as you say, Akin, never mind the travesty of justice that was attempted, but thank God for all these things. But we keep on going back to, it's like drug money. The secrecy involved. Now, people fear that with the secrecy involved and the desire to cover people, they were even going to throw a good man away in the interest of this secrecy with a bogus charge of corruption. So people are saying, we need to know all those powers that be, the people that cannot be touched in Nigeria. This is the time. And perhaps this, as you said, we're in Tinubu's administration now. It's a new hope, new hope and all of that, renewed hope. Perhaps part of that hope is that things will not be covered that needn't be covered in the interest of a quote-unquote esprit de corps. Thank you.
The starting point is to look at the judgment. I think the Attorney General is best suited to know that the judgment should be studied. It offers some pointers. And so a thorough investigation, the inquiry should immediately, progress. Some people have been brought to trial already. There are some other people that are yet to be brought to trial. Those ones need yet to be fished out. And then properly investigated and brought to trial. So that we know, so that when people are brought to book, but not only this kind of contract, it's also a pointer that maybe some other contracts that have been executed in the past with disastrous consequences on our revenue. We now need to revisit those cases and check them out.